Hello, you're very welcome back to the Matchbook World Cup podcast. It's the final podcast covering the group games. It's hard to believe. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined, as always, by the ever-present trio of Adrian, Clarke, Mark O'Hare, Miguel, Delaney, ready for one final push into the group stages. So we'll get straight into it. We're going to be covering Thursday games, Friday games, and firstly, we'll take a look at Thursday 3 o'clock game, which is Canada versus Morocco. The first one, we'll take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back Canada at 3.8. Morocco available at 2.22. The draw is 3.45. Both teams to score yes is 1.93. No is available at 2.02. And on the Asian handicap line, Canada are getting a quarter of a goal head start at 2.08. And the total is 2.25. Adrian, I hope you don't mind me saying you were last to fill the document this morning. I was getting very worried that I might have to tip up in this game because both Mark and Miguel are sitting this one.
They've walked away, haven't they? Stepped aside from this one. Probably shrewd judges, I'd say, because it is a difficult game to pick, isn't it? Morocco only need a point. Not the most expansive of sides, but impressive, weren't they, in their last victory against the Belgians? I thought that was a good performance, really professional, roared on by amazing fans, and you wonder whether that's going to be the highlight of their World Cup or whether they can kick on now. They're up against a Canada team that know that they really can't go through. So it's a weird game to call. How will Canada approach it? I think they'll just go for it. I don't see why they wouldn't. John Herdman seems quite positive, doesn't he, in his approach? Definitely wants to entertain. He wants his team to be on the front foot. And they're much better going forward than they are at the back, let me tell you. So I think Canada will want to go out with a bang here, and they'll attack Morocco. Now, the issue is Morocco have got 6 clean sheets in a row under this manager. He's made them incredibly tight, but these runs don't go on forever. And you know, there is a prospect here that they might take their eye off the ball, I think, against a Canada side that can play with a handbrake off. So I'm looking at both teams to score here. Canada's defence fills me with zero confidence. So I absolutely think that Morocco can get on the score sheet, especially with Boufal and Ziyech in such good form. Want to see a bit more from their striker. But yeah, I think they're worth at least a goal. And I think Canada, the way they've gone about their work, they can test them as well, playing with a slightly gung-ho attitude. So yeah, it's difficult to call who's going to win. How Morocco, will they go for it or not, knowing they only need a draw? We don't know, but I think both teams to score is a shout at the price. I don't think that's bad at all, considering Canada have been involved in some quite lively games so far.
Yeah, we always preach in this podcast, you don't have to have a bet at every game in the World Cup, but if you do want one, and Adrian's got a bit of a lean there, both teams to score 1.93, given the attacking threat of Canada in particular. We'll move on to the second game, the big game in this group, which sees Croatia versus Belgium, and Belgium under massive pressure to qualify. We'll take a look at the betting as we have it on matchbook.com. You can back Croatia at 2.82, Belgium 2.76, the draws at 3.45. Both teams to score yes is available at 1.87. The Asian handicap line is a draw no bet market, slightly shaded towards Belgium at 1.97, and the total is 2.5 goals, slightly shaded once more to the under in this tournament. So Mark, we'll give you a bit of props first of all on the anti-post market. Your best bet was laying Belgium to top the group. Now that should come through. But what are your kind of thoughts on this game in Belgium so far? Because I guess they've even been worse than you thought they were, despite the fact they've actually won a game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, they definitely have. They're very lucky to have 3 points on the board, yes, considering how the game went against Canada. Really surprised by the prices in this match, in fairness. Now, we know Croatia don't need to win. A point should be enough for them to qualify. Belgium must win. But we've seen towards the end of standard Premier League campaigns, when teams need to win, they get sort of backed into artificially short prices. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win the match just because they need to. Doesn't make you suddenly a much better team than the opponents because of that need. So I'm just quite happy to go against Belgium yet again. You can get Croatia on side of a quarter goal start around 173, which effectively makes money if they avoid defeat in this match. Had a little look at the pre-tournament prices. It's not moved massively. Croatia would have been around 1.83 pre-tournament with a quarter goal start. And I think everything we've seen, whilst you don't want to judge too much on just 2 games, everything we've seen suggests they're far superior to Belgium. And I think even over the last calendar year, Croatia came into this competition as one of the form teams alongside the Dutch. They'd lost just once in 11 coming into the World Cup, and they started to integrate a new breed of youngsters alongside their experienced heads. They've still got that supreme control in midfield. Defensively, they are pretty tight. They've conceded just 4 shots in the box across their first 2 games, given up 4 shots on target. And going forward, they've got ability. They might not have a Robert Lewandowski or a Harry Kane, but they've got ability, and they are a very difficult team to beat. And you just look at Belgium so far. They've generated 1.7 XG against Canada and Morocco as a combined. They've conceded 3.25 non-penalty expected goals. They've had 11 shots in the box. They've conceded 24. So across the first 2 rounds of action at the World Cup, they would rank inside the bottom 6 for non-penalty expected goals ratio and shots in the box ratio out of 32, which is pretty staggering considering their opponents were Canada and Morocco. The big plus might be Romelu Lukaku coming back into the team. We don't know his fitness, and clearly they have talent in the fact they've got De Bruyne and Thibaut Courtois. But that defence is worrisome. They're going to have to come out and play in this match. They need the win, and I think Croatia's control, their confidence, and the way in which they swept Canada aside in that second half, I just think they're too streetwise for Belgium, and they're capable of getting at least a point from this match.
Yeah, Miguel, over to you. Maybe focusing on Belgium. I guess it's a big game for a number of the players, the manager as well. But thinking maybe someone like Kevin De Bruyne, who plays exemplary football for Manchester City for the last 5 or 6 years, it's a big night for him to maybe showcase and maybe drag his country into the knockout stages with a team that's probably not good enough to be there.
Yeah, I mean, this is what kind of frames the whole thing. It's a potential last chance for a generation, and something. Will De Bruyne be around at the next World Cup? Seems unlikely. I suppose with this golden generation, I must say with Belgium, I think it's probably overlooked how good they were in 2018, and De Bruyne was brilliant in that Brazil game. Only lost to the eventual champion, so I think there's been a little bit of revisionism of what they've done since, but there's no doubt about what they are now. And this is another one I find very difficult. I mean, with Croatia, even I just thought they took advantage of Canadian inexperience, and it was almost why I didn't say anything in the first game, because I think Canada could have one of those classic situations where they suddenly rise to it in that last game because they're almost more relaxed. And with this, I mean, I'm almost tempted they're going to go through almost an accumulator on so many BTTS, because as we've already seen from the game so far. And I think this will be one of those games where it could be initially cagey, but then if there's one break, it's a free-for-all. Just because of that desperation, because of the greater stakes, because these are 2 teams, 2 squad cores going for their last World Cup in that sense. And I think that will really infuse the game. So I think the safest here, I mean, I'd lean towards a Croatia win, but wouldn't be all that confident on it. So I think the safest is almost BTTS.
Yeah, BTTS 1.86. And if you do want to do an ACCA on the Matchbook Exchange, we are best priced on any of those, both teams to scores invariably. So well worth maybe doing one for those final group games. Adrian, you're with Mark in agreement. And I know Miguel leaning towards Croatia, but you're fully in agreement with Mark here.
Yeah, Team O'Hare.
Team O'Hare, let's go.
Team O'Hare. I am. If someone's trying to phone me, they can wait. I'm gonna go with Croatia. I mean, to get a profit on anything other than a Belgian win appeals. Just to have the draw and the Croatian win on side. Okay, it's not the biggest price in the world, but it's still the right side of 1.7. And yeah, look, on the eye test, Belgium have been atrocious. Body language, not good at all. I mean, Mark's rattled off all those stats, but just the morale and the sort of spirit and just the vibe you're getting off of Belgium is bad. And Croatia, yeah, like I think Miguel's right. I think they profited from a really sort of green Canada side the other night, a little bit naive in their tactical approach, but well done to them. And I think they'll take a lot of confidence from that win. So I think they're more than capable of at least drawing this game. I think actually the Belgian win is the least likely of all 3 outcomes. I'd probably say draw is favourite, then a Croatia win, and the least likely being a Belgian win. That's how I see it based on what I've seen so far.
Yeah, so the perfect bet there is to take on Belgium at the prices. So that's Mark and Adrian plus a quarter of a goal on a Croatia side, and then both teams to score yes for Miguel at 1.86. We'll move on to the Group E, And we'll take a look at the betting for the first game we have here, which is Costa Rica versus Germany. This group is set up brilliantly for a dramatic final day. And you can back Costa Rica at 27.0 if you fancy them to beat the Germans.
No.
Yes, next. Germany 1.13. I think this is the shortest we've had in the stages so far. Draws available at 11.5. Both teams to score no is 1.64. The Asian handicap line sees Costa Rica get a 2.5 goal head start at 2.02, and the total is, wait for it, 3 3/4 goals in this game, slightly shaded towards the under. Miguel, I'll hand this over to you, and your bet kind of ties in with the match prices essentially, but you're looking at Germany and over, so you're expecting the Germans to take care of business fairly handy here. I guess they've been given a lifeline and they're going to take it.
And I think it's about exactly that. I mean, all the talk coming from the German camp, with somebody even this related to the protest about the rainbow armband, was a squad that was almost a split squad. So much tension, a feeling that things maybe hadn't kicked on since 2018 or 2020, Euro 2020. But you could feel the relief. You can see it in the mix zone after the game. They've been given a second chance, and it's almost a perfect opposition for a second chance like that. Not just a team that can be as porous against a big side as we saw Costa Rica in that first game against Spain, but almost in that kind of dangerous situation where they're coming off really emotional high of that win. So I'm expecting one of these kind of vintage, ruthless German performances.
Yeah, and Mark, you're in broad agreement with this. You're going Germany and both teams to score now, and I guess you look at the first hour against Japan and the 90 minutes against Spain. I think Germany are set up fairly well for a big performance here.
Yeah, they are. I've been quite positive about Germany's display so far. I think there's a lot sort of read into that game against Japan, but they could have had it done and dusted by first 45 minutes, after an hour even. They do give away opportunities, which is a slight concern, but I just think the price of 175 on Germany to win and BTTS no is too good to ignore, really. Only France have generated a higher XG figure after the first two fixtures. They were playing, Australia and Denmark. Germany have done it against Spain and Japan, which deserves extra credit, I think. 37 shots, 24 inside the box, 13 on target, 7 big chances created. They switched shape against Spain, and I thought they played pretty well for the most part. Could have won it at the death when Leroy Sané made a poor decision when through on goal. Happy to be pro Germany here. And look, Costa Rica, we saw much more what we're expecting to see from Costa Rica against Japan. They were organised, they were confrontational, difficult to penetrate, all the hallmarks which kind of Luis Fernandez Suarez is quite famous for with his teams of underdogs. They don't score many goals, but they don't do a huge amount in the final third, as we've seen. Failed to have a shot against Spain, had only 4 against Japan, one of which was in the penalty area, and have failed to even win a corner yet in the first 2 games as well. So that kind of goes to show what penalty box threat they're offering up. So Germany to win and BTTS no, just feels logical to me. 175, I would expect this to go off much shorter than 1.66.
Adrian, I'll throw a little curveball at you. Going into this tournament, I was saying whoever finishes second in this group, and if the groups pan out, will get the slightly easier draw, I guess, not having Brazil and Argentina on that side, given I know England and France, but still. Germany will more than likely finish second. Are they a player for you in the outright?
Are they a player in the outright? I think it's always dangerous to write them off completely. I don't see them as potential winners. I think they're dangerous opponents for everybody. I actually felt that they deserved to win that game against Spain, based on what we saw in that last 20 minutes. They created some big chances, and they should have won it. So, yeah, they're a contender. They are a contender, but they're not in the top 3. I think if they can get to the semi-finals, this group, that will be a tremendous achievement. Because then, at the back, I'm still not exactly convinced by Germany. So I hope that's not sitting on the fence too much. No. I'm with Mark on the selection for this one. Yeah, you can't see Costa Rica scoring, can you? Just one shot on target in the whole tournament so far. They just don't play against teams of Germany's quality often enough. You know, the opposition they're used to playing is not in the same stratosphere really, and I think that's counting against them. Germany, I do agree with Mark. I think they've done all right here, and they've created a load of chances. Yeah, they're a bit flawed, but they always look like they're worth a goal. And I think Füllkrug, I thought he was a game changer the other night when he came on. That was my issue. I think having Müller up front, or Havertz the first game, then Muller for the second game, and then they took him off and put Füllkrug on, a proper centre forward. I think it made a huge difference. Gave them that platform to bring the wide players into the game. And we saw Sane come off the bench. He was dynamite. And they've got great wide players and attacking midfielders like Musiala, of course, and Gnabry. So I think they should play him. I really do in the next game, just to mix things up. Yeah, I think Germany will win, and it might take them a bit of time to sort of grind Costa Rica down, but they should win with something to spare, and can't see them losing a goal. So yeah, Germany and BTTS no.
Yeah, 1.75 ish for Mark and Adrian, and Miguel going for a bit more aggressive Germany and over 3.5 goals in the game if you fancy them to do the business. 1.99. We'll move on to the other game in the group, and it's Japan versus Spain. And take a look at the betting as we have it on matchbook.com. Adrian's hitting this one out, so I'll go to you, Miguel. It's Japan at 9.4, Spain 1.43. The draw is 5.0. Both teams to score 1.82 is favoured at no in that market. And the Asian handicap line sees Japan get 1.25 goal at 2.04. The total is 2 3/4. Miguel, I don't think Japan played overly bad against Costa Rica, but I think ultimately coming off that high of that win against Germany, was always going to be tough to back it up in a completely different sort of game. Where are you liking their chances here against Spain?
I actually think this game is tighter than maybe a lot of people feel, despite even though a lot of people read into how they did against Costa Rica. And I agree with Mark on the manner they snatched the Germany win. Maybe think it's possible Japan have been a little bit not overrated, but I was just thinking of the way Gareth Southgate was even speaking them up. But I do think this is actually a difficult. I mean, Spain are actually a little bit strange in that I think that at their best, so when they're on one of those spells of football where they're fully asserting themselves, fully applying everything or their game plan, how they play, I think they're actually the best team in the tournament. But the issue is that doesn't last indefinitely; it only lasts for periods. And around that, they've got a lot of flaws that Germany almost exploited. It does suggest to me that this is almost a tournament too early for Spain. But at the same time, I think there's no complete team at this tournament. And I mean, I was kind of thinking as we were talking there, I do wonder whether Spain draw here, because suddenly that the way that the tournament potentially pans out if Germany get through. Suddenly Germany are on a much softer side of the draw, and will Spain have rued an opportunity? But they'll be going all out to win. Ultimately, it will come down to greater quality and imposing their game. But I'm thinking of a narrow Spanish win, but possibly one where they concede. So that's what I'm going for, under 4.5.
Yeah, about 1.73. Mark, we're going to save the outright for Saturday morning. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I do want to tell listeners we are recording this before Argentina, if they might not even top the group, which throws things even more wild. But yeah, look, realistically, Spain will obviously be going for the victory as always. But there's a lot of things that go into these tournaments sometimes, I guess, Mark.
Yeah, this is an interesting game. I completely agree with Miguel about Japan. Actually, I think they've been no better than average at best, really. Very fortunate against Germany, and was very, very unimpressed with what they did against Costa Rica. They looked really flat, and we talked about Moriyasu as a head coach. He's pragmatic and conservative by nature, and they looked uneasy as such strong favourites, and they looked uncomfortable being asked to sort of take the initiative and attack. Didn't sort of suit them, and they tend to thrive in sort of counter-attack situations. So this might actually be better for them than playing Costa Rica, because they generated 0.88 XG against Costa Rica. If you simulated that over all the chances that they created over 10,000 times, it means they only score at least once, 60% of the time. So, they weren't that unlucky to lose it, really, considering what they did in the final third themselves. Obviously, the goal was a bit of a smash and grab, but even still. And then, Spain supreme against a desperate Costa Rica team, but then quite jittery in that last half hour against Germany. And Morata comes on, scores the goal. But actually, their pressing game started to falter with him up front. And Spain's last shot in the match came in the 65th minute. Germany had 6 in the final half hour. As we said, could have won it late on as well. So they've got that control in midfield. Don't really like the defence personnel-wise. And going forward, you just need them to sort of catch fire to... but even that can be quite inconsistent too. So I do expect them to get the job done, but I don't expect it to be easy or straightforward, even sort of being quite negative about Japan. So yeah, Spain to win an under 4.5 goals, just because it gives you so many different correct score options on your team.
Just on that as well. I think whatever with Japan feeling nervous when they were kind of the favourites against Costa Rica, Spain also have this slight habit that's happened in the last 10 years. I think this will be something that's kind of accentuated because they're youth, where if games are tight going into those final stages, they can be nervous and anxious, especially when they've had such control in games, and that doesn't translate into goals, as we kind of saw against Germany as well. And they're almost kind of a two-faced team in that way, Spain.
Yeah.
Like
it puts me off of them. Yeah,
Switzerland, Sweden, Greece. They've all happened in the last 18 months or so, and they've really sort of struggled.
Yeah, they were vulnerable to the press, weren't they? When Germany hounded them, when they tried to play out from the back, they did not look comfortable. This is Spain. No team, no set of players are usually more comfortable on the ball than the Spanish. But I agree. I think Miguel's right. When the stakes are a bit higher, they tense up, and it's an inexperienced thing. And also, just that back four doesn't fill me with that much confidence. So, teams that can hound them, I think will get joy. But if you let Spain come at you, they'll work their magic.
Yeah, and listen, that we're going to be recording our outright Saturday morning, 8:45 ahead of the round of 16s, and Spain currently third favourites on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. So fascinating how that all plays out. Before we get into the next set of games on Friday, let me point you into the direction of our new sign-up offer that we're currently running throughout the World Cup on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. It's for new customers. If you want to get involved and you're a regular listener to the podcast and you'd like to set up an exchange account and a Matchbook Betting Exchange account, we're currently doing double odds on podcast best bets. That's double odds on podcast best bets up to £50 in cash. So all you have to do is enter the bonus code podcast. Let's enter the bonus code podcast. You put your bet on as normal, and we will top up within 72 hours, but invariably a lot quicker than that as well. So all you have to do is enter the bonus code podcast up to £50, 18 plus, T's and C's apply, and BeGambleAware. So we'll get to the podcast best bets later. We'll move on to a memorable World Cup game a few years ago. It's Ghana versus Uruguay. This is Friday, 3:00. It all comes down to this one in this group. It's Ghana currently 5.3. Uruguay the favourites at 1.79. The draw is 3.95. Both teams to score yes is 2.02. No is 1.92. Ghana are getting a 3/4 of a goal head start at 1.96, and the total is 2.5, slightly shaded towards the under. So, Adrian, I'll hand over to you. I just couldn't help myself by asking this question, that your memories from 12 years ago, and where were you when Suarez infamously handballed that last minute?
I can't remember where I was yesterday. I'm not like that. 10 minutes ago, where was I? I don't know. I do remember the incident, and I was outraged for Ghana, but it was the right villain, wasn't it? It was the right villain. He's just a natural to play that role, isn't he, Luis Suarez? So. It'd be fascinating to see if he starts and whether the Ghanaian players kick the living daylights out of him. In terms of, do you want me to talk about the match?
Yeah, go on. Well, it's up to you, Adrian. Maybe link into the overs, or maybe a play on the back of that game.
It's a tough game. I think it's a tough game. I think we've all got kind of varying selections here. I maybe underestimated Ghana. I think in the last game I put up South Korea as a draw no bet because I thought they were tactically a more solid team. I like the relentless nature of the way they attack South Korea, and I just thought that they would come out on the right side of that, but they didn't. It was Ghana that did, and credit to them. Obviously in Mohamed Kudus, they've got one of the young players of the tournament so far. He's absolutely reveling. So they've been better than I thought, but having said that, they're conceding goals, aren't they, for fun? South Korea got 2, Portugal got 3, didn't they, in the previous game? So you can't be that confident in them keeping a clean sheet. Uruguay have been a bit curious, haven't they? Looked slow and felt like they picked the wrong team in that first game. And then in the second game, I think they did pretty well by and large against Portugal. They were every bit as good as Portugal, but poor finishing. They come out on the wrong side of that game with nothing. So the pressure's on. They've got to let that handbrake go, haven't they, Uruguay? They've got to go for it. They've got to try and target what I think is still a suspect Ghanaian defence. So I think we might get a good game, and it should be a cracking atmosphere because of the African venom that will be inside that stadium aimed at Uruguay. So I think it'll be a sort of feverish atmosphere. And I can see it being quite lively, more lively than most Uruguay games. So all things considered, I don't know who's going to win, but I'm going to go for over 2.5 goals. I think Uruguay will win. I think they've got a bit more class, but I couldn't guarantee that. But I do think there'll be goals. So over 2.5 at a good price, 2.1. It's not bad for a Ghanaian game based on what we've seen so far. So I'll take that.
Yeah, that second half, I said Korea and Ghana was amazing. Miguel, it was one of your first ever games 12 years ago.
Yeah, well, my first ever World Cup games, first at Soccer City. It was amazing. There was obviously this massive momentum behind Ghana because they were Africa's remaining team in Africa's World Cup and potentially the first to get to the semi-final, only to be taken away from that way. And I mean, as it happened, obviously, because of all that, it was difficult not to kind of sympathise or kind of want Ghana to do it. And yet, on the other side, it was that kind of classic, just the relishing of just what Uruguay were up to. And especially, I remember, it's one of those things where you kind of, I suppose, where what's been broadcast starts to kind of influence your memory. But I can't remember if I saw Luis Suarez in the tunnel or I saw it on the TV screen. But that famous celebration after the penalty was missed.
Cheering like that,
basically, yeah. I mean, absolutely vintage, and here he is, although very much, or 12 years later, a very different player, as we saw on Monday night. With this, though, I think this is almost more so than any other game in the tournament, the ultimate meeting of opposites. I mean, you've got Ghana, who all their games have had a lot of goals and so much chaos, and in Uruguay, who haven't scored a goal yet, generally still quite robust. And what's going to give? It is because of that. I almost think nothing will give. Well, I mean, I'm leaning towards a draw here.
Okay, yeah.
The potential was Ghana through.
Yeah, 3.9 is the draw on that one. So maybe Uruguay won't be able to break them down. Perhaps. Mark, it's set up to be a fascinating game. The team selection for Uruguay will be very interesting if they pick that front two. Who will it be? Would it be Cavani, Nunes? Would it be Nunes, Suarez? Who would it be?
Yeah, well, I don't think Suarez should be starting for Uruguay. I think we saw the effect of that happening in the first game, really. Unfortunately for him, he's just a bit past it now. Hasn't got the legs, and I think you're going to need legs against this Ghanaian team, who've been great fun. Fancy them as a bit of a wild card pre-tournament in this group, but I thought Portugal were the most vulnerable ones, actually, and Uruguay have almost paid the price for picking the wrong team in their opener and then failing to take their chances when they were the better team, I thought, against Portugal, and having that ridiculous penalty decision go against them. But yeah, still without a goal, which is pretty criminal considering. But defensively, they've been pretty tight. They've only allowed 6 shots in the box so far. It's just they've looked a bit pedestrian, a bit lacking in penetration going forward. And Diego Alonso has been heavily criticised back home for not just the team selection, but also the tactical approach of Uruguay in this competition. And, you know, possibly slightly harsh, despite what I've said there, because they have hit the woodwork 3 times. One of those shots goes in. It's a completely different complexion on things, but that's where we're at right now, and they have to, as you say, release the shackles, take the handbrake off, and have to go for Ghana. And I think that kind of plays into Ghana's hands here because they thrive in the chaos. You look sort of regardless of tactics, but you look at where the strengths of both teams are and the weaknesses. I would say Uruguay's weakness is a slow, aging defence, whereas Ghana's threats is in a very pacey forward line, which is quite unpredictable. So if Uruguay are having to press to try and get to them and be proactive, that is going to leave opportunities in behind for Ghana in counterattacks. And their matches so far have averaged 3.2 XG. And as we've seen, they do tend to thrive in the chaos. It didn't go their way against Portugal, but defensively they are pretty open. They've conceded 33 shots and 23 attempts from inside the penalty area already. But I just think, do or die for both teams effectively. It's hard not to see or not to imagine this being a bit of a thriller, a bit of an entertaining game where both sides have to pretty much go for it and try and get their just rewards. I think Uruguay will definitely score. So it's then you're just reliant on Ghana. Can they do similar? I think they're more than capable of, considering the talent in that team in forward areas. And I think both teams to score at better than evens is well worth the pot.
Okay, yeah. A lot of ways to play that. Mark's going with both teams to score at 2.02, Adrian on overs, and Miguel liking the draw at 3.9. We'll move on to the other game in that group. It's South Korea versus Portugal, and take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back South Korea at 9-2 or 5.5. You can back Portugal 1.65. The draw is available at 4.6. Both teams to score, yes, is favoured in this market 1.89. The Asian handicap line sees Korea get a 1-goal head start at 1.88, and the total is 2 3/4. Mark's sitting this one out. Over to you, Adrian, on this one. What sort of team are Portugal going to put out here, considering they're already through?
It's a good question, yeah, and I think it would put me off of backing Portugal to win the game in sort of any guise, because you can't be sure. They don't need to do anything about it, do they? They don't need to be that fussed. So how is that going to impact them? Sometimes you make a lot of changes, the fringe players come in, and they're brilliant, and they're delighted to be out there. There's no pressure, and they turn it on, or it could become disjointed, couldn't it? So yeah, it's an awkward one. I think I'd want to, if I was thinking about backing Portugal here or either side, I'd wait until the team lineups come in later on. But we're going to have to sort of make a call early doors, and I think obviously South Korea were a bit weak in the last game at the back. They couldn't handle the Ghanaian power and pace of the forwards. They were exposed, and I think that Portugal have got enough up top. You know, somebody like Leao will probably come in, and I think he could potentially hurt them in this game. So Portugal, no matter which team they put out, I think it will be worth a goal here. But South Korea, I mean, they had I used the word earlier, relentless. I love their attitude. They just keep going, don't they? They pick themselves up. We'll go again, and we'll just be busy and get the ball wide. Those 2 goals I thought against Ghana were brilliant. Feeding it wide, whipping great crosses in, and the double from Gui-sung was fantastic. It was a lovely brace. So yeah, I think they can score too. I do, against a Portuguese team that looked a bit wobbly, I thought, against Ghana. Not so much Uruguay, although they should have scored, shouldn't they? Bentancur should have scored when he waltzed through their defence. I don't think this is the greatest Portuguese defence in the world. I really don't. So, yeah, I can see both teams scoring here. You know, maybe a 1-1 draw, 2-2, something like that. But both teams to score would be my selection.
Yeah, Miguel, you're in agreement, I guess, on what Adrian said. This South Korea team will keep going to the end, and if there is a small chance, albeit very small chance, of qualifying, they'll still keep pushing for goals.
Yeah, that's it. And so, I mean, on one side is Korean urgency, and we've seen open games there. But also on the other side, I think I agree with Adrian, this is a little bit difficult to read. And when a team is already through in those games, it can lend itself to a bit of chaos in itself. Just because they play a different team, they don't have that same sharpness because they don't need to win. Although players will obviously are playing for their place, but it's in a different context. And because of that, this could be quite high scoring, but I'm going to play it safe there and go BTTS.
Yeah, both teams to score. Yes, 1.89 is the selection for Adrian and Miguel. So we'll move on to the Friday night game. And we see Cameroon against the favourites, Brazil, and take a look at the betting as you have at matchbook.com. You can back Cameroon at 11.0, Brazil 1.35. The draw is available at 5.9. Both teams to score. No is favoured once again at 1.75. The Asian handicap line sees Cameroon get a 1.5 goal start at 2.06, and a high goal line for this tournament anyway is 3.0. The goals currently shaded towards the under. So Mark, we'll head over to you on this one. This is a very interesting angle you have here. Tell us a little bit about the correct score market on Matchbook and what sort of scores you can potentially get on side when you do any other score.
Yeah, so if you go to the correct score market, it will be basically your 0-0s, your 1-1s, 1-0, etc., and so on. But if you want to get a team on side to score 4 or more goals in the correct score market, you're basically just offered any other win. So it effectively requires Brazil to score 4 or more goals, and you get any correct score on side, whether it's 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, 4-1, 4-2. And you're getting 4.10 on Brazil to win by any other scoreline. So Brazil basically to score 4 goals and win this match. And of course, it's a bit of a long shot, but this is the kind of game I can see sort of just descending into a one-sided contest. Cameroon, nothing really has changed for me in terms of my opinion on them pre-tournaments. Not a very well-coached team. They've still got class and individuals and forward areas who can cause any team problems, but they're playing a Brazil team who are supremely coached and probably the least flawed of all. Of course, they're already qualified, but you look at the players that they can bring into this team, they'll all want to make a statement to try and get back into the 11, and they're all quality as well. And then you just look at the Cameroon camp right now, sending Anana home, the goalkeeper, just descending into chaos really behind the scenes, and then the replacement, his performance against Serbia left a lot to be desired really, and suggests that there's bigger issues at play here. We know that Samuel Eto'o's he's the Cameroonian president. He's been interfering a lot with first team matters, obviously appointing his best mate Rigobert Song in the coaching position anyhow. I just think you don't want to be going into the last game needing a result and playing open football against Brazil team who are able to sort of relax, really. So you look at the handicap, it's 1.5 on Brazil to overcome. I just think it's a much much more enjoyable way to cheer on a 4.1 shot than back Brazil to overcome that. Serbia found it very, very easy to open up Cameroon. They scored 3 goals, generated 2.3 XG, had 10 shots in the box. If Serbia can do that, there's no reason why Brazil can't do that with a bit more freedom of expression. They've already had 36 shots, 21 inside the box, and 3.4 XG generated in 2 games against 2 teams who set up very, very defensively with low blocks. Cameroon, pointless them doing that, because if they want to stay in this competition, they're going to have to come out and play. That could be, it could easily be 4, 5, 6. It's just 4.1. Just a bit of beer money, just a bit of enjoyable play here. I'm eager to hear what the lads think.
Yeah, there's broad agreement, I guess, but that's definitely the best way in terms of price, anyway, in terms of high price. Miguel, Brazil, both teams to score no, so you fancy Brazil to really focus on keeping the clean sheet, I guess, against an all right attack, and then pick Cameroon off at their ease.
Well, they're just so hard to break down, and while I think they will make changes, Cheech is such a strong structure. I mean, we've seen in the first 2 games so far, I mean, they've barely been got at all, and I expect that to continue in this game. I think they'll try to keep momentum and go for 9 points. Brazil and to keep another clean sheet, which could be one of the things that drives this tournament.
Yeah, and a third way into this game. So if you're thinking about what sort of bet to put on, what angle, you'll have the team sheet out in front of you. You're listening back to the podcast hour before. Adrian's found the way in, I think. Adrian, is that it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's the a way in. I don't know if it's the way, but I like Mark's shout.
I do as well.
The way he talks about it, and I find myself agreeing with everything. And it's like, they're gonna spank them 5-0 here, aren't they? Yeah. It got me believing. I'm going for Brazil to be leading at halftime and for Brazil to win the match. So Brazil on the halftime, full-time market. You get it odds against, which I think is tremendous. I don't know why it's that price. I think it might be because Brazil have been slow starters in their first 2 games, because they've taken a while to grind down Serbia and then Switzerland, of course. But as Mark rightly points out, this is different. Cameroon are loose. They're not good. They're the opposite of organised, really. I think when they don't have the ball, they're a bit of a liability. The game state says that they've got to win if they want to stay in the World Cup. So I don't see them any point in them shutting up shop. So, if they go for it, they're going to leave big gaps for Brazil to have fun with. And we've seen already, even though against 2 really defensive teams, we've seen Brazil look really sharp inside the final third. The goal tally doesn't reflect that, but it might do after this fixture. I can see them winning comfortably, and I think a fast start just works for them in this game. I think Chicho will say, right, come on, none of this slow start, let's get our noses in front early, let's enjoy ourselves, and then we can take people off, give you a lot of game on the sidelines, and everyone's a winner. So I think that will be the mentality here. Bury Cameroon early doors and then just have fun second half.
Yeah, so 3 ways in. Brazil halftime, full time for Adrian. Brazil by any other score on match. Bookmark explained it there, 4.1. And cautious Miguel going with Brazil and both teams to score no. The safe option, Miguel. This World Cup.
What's going on?
Yeah,
I've got Miguel's bet. Have we mixed things up here, have we?
Yeah, that's very true. So
that sunshine getting to you, Migs.
The air conditioning runs, perhaps, Miguel. We'll move on to the game of this group here. It's Serbia versus Switzerland. Adrian sitting this one out, and we'll take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back Serbia 2.68, Switzerland 2.92, and the draw is available at 3.45. Both teams to score yes is favoured at 1.88. The Asian handicap line is effectively a draw no bet market, with Serbia at 1.9, Switzerland 2.02, and the total is 2.25, shaded towards the over a good bit there. So Miguel, I was looking at both teams to score, but I do really like the Switzerland defence. So make the case in terms of Serbia breaking them down and then Switzerland getting a goal as well.
Well, again, I think all these games will be framed by the urgency. Also, let's not forget, this is a game we saw in 2018, and a high charged one, given the political situation, given the number of migrants from Kosovo and Albania to Switzerland, with some of them represented in the Swiss squad. This is going to be charged. So I think that will change the kind of normal dynamics of the teams. When on top of that, the fact it's a direct playoff for the last 16. And just from that, I think Switzerland they've got more experience, maybe a bit more quality and a bit more about them. So I fancy goals. And I mean, I should come to this from a correct score later, but I fancy goals, and the Swiss to just about do enough. So I'm going both teams to score.
Yeah, Mark, what about there's a lot of stuff in the background. Miguel touched on the last World Cup. There's a couple of injuries as well, doubts in this game. Talk to us a little bit about this game and how you see it going.
Oh man, I'm so looking forward to this game. It's amazing. I think it's the last game we're covering in the group stage, and it's the one I was most looking forward to pre-tournament, even more so than Germany and Spain, just because of the tensions that Miguel's talked about. What happened 4 years ago? What's already happened in this competition with certain flags being hung up in changing rooms, etc. Just to sort of really fan the flames already. It is going to be intense, and I'm going to back Switzerland to come through it. I think they've been slightly underrated by the market, so you can get them on side with the quarter goal start at 1.77. I've been pro Switzerland from the off, and I'm happy to kind of go in again. Before the tournament started, it was a pick-em between these two teams. Clearly, the market thinks because Serbia need to win, they deserve to be slightly shorter in the market. But going on what we've seen so far, they went very much against their usual ways against Brazil, still ended up losing. Went back to being kind of gung-ho against Cameroon, and were pretty much a rabble defensively. They conceded 8 shots on target, 9 inside the box, 3 goals, 2.29 XG. And with the greatest respect to Cameroon, they've got quality in forward areas, but as we talked about, they're a bit of a rabble themselves, really. So, I just think Serbia, in terms of what they offer compared to Switzerland, who are tough to break down, difficult to beat, they're smart, they're efficient, they're experienced, they're streetwise. To get paid out on a profit if Switzerland avoid defeat at that price really appeals. And I'm very much aware of Serbia's threats. They have plenty of ability in forward areas. We've seen them go to Portugal in Lisbon on the final day of World Cup qualifying and turn in a tremendous performance, a historic performance, which shows they are capable. They've kept 3 clean sheets in 16 competitive games across the World Cup qualification, Nations League, and the World Cup itself. The toughest opponent in that time was Portugal twice. They've played Azerbaijan, Luxembourg, Slovenia, and forgive me, Ireland in 8 of those games. They've conceded in 7 of those 8 matches. So if they can concede against less of an average opposition, there's no reason why Switzerland cannot score in this match, and then Serbia are absolutely chasing it. And just on the political tensions, there's always a chance that players can lose their heads in this situation. And if you look individually, clearly both teams have characters who can lose it a little bit, but probably more so on the Serbian side, and that would worry me. I wouldn't want to back Serbia as favourites in this game because of that, and I think it could easily have a real big bearing on this match. We don't know who the referee is. Cards will be going around in this match, and so whoever's going to keep their heads ready, I'd back Switzerland to do so.
Not many reds in this tournament, by the way, are there? Are we on for a
no, and they didn't want to give the red to Hennessy either, did they? Which was the most blatant red. I was really sort of grudgingly having to check out the red card for him.
Is that the only one so far?
I think so.
Yeah. I think it's 1 or 2. Yeah, there's no more than that anyway. Yeah. We'll lock those in. Switzerland plus a quarter of a goal for Mark 1.77, and Miguel both teams to score 1.87. And Miguel and Mark love this game so much for a bet that they're bringing it into their long shot section. This is a new section we've introduced at high prices. We've hit a lot of crossbars on the correct scores. Let me tell you that much for someone that's been on a couple of them. Adrian, tell us a little bit about you're going for correct score here. Ghana 1, Uruguay 2, 9.8.
Yeah, like I tipped up over 2.5, so I've got to follow that in, and I do think that both teams are likely to score. Uruguay have got to release that handbrake. They've got to go for it. Got to go for the win. So I think we'll see more of them as an attacking force. It's about time they brought their shooting boots as well. So yeah, I think they can definitely score more than once in the game against the Ghanaian defence that's looked a little bit suspect at times. I think Marcus used the term wild. I wouldn't disagree with that. But Ghana at the other end have got power, they've got pace, they've got a little bit of quality as well with Kudus in particular. So yeah, I can see this being a good game. And when I looked at it, I thought Uruguay 2-1. I wonder what the price is. I thought it was quite high. I did for this particular scoreline. So 9.8 on 2-1 Uruguay appeals.
Yeah, Mark, over to you. Back to this game. Switzerland, both teams to score, which, look, if you're expecting the game to play off, given everything around it with a bit of tension, this probably looks a big price at 6.0. Switzerland, both teams to score.
Yeah, obviously Switzerland are pretty stubborn defensively, but Serbia have got so much quality. You wouldn't want to back against them getting on the score sheet. But as I said, in the second half, things can start to escalate, shall we say. And if there is a red card or if there is incidents which lead to the match opening up, I just think Switzerland are the smarter, the savvier of the two teams and can probably take advantage of it, whether it's discipline issues or team shape. I just think there is an edge there with the Swiss. And Switzerland to win and both teams to score. Things could, as I say, open up in the second half. They could have the run of the place. Backing it at 5-1, it suggests it's got about a 15% chance of landing. I think it's probably a bit higher than that, to be honest. It could be the match of the tournament. And as I say, I'm quite happy to be pro Switzerland.
Yeah, and Miguel, if the most likely scoreline of if a team's going to win and both teams to score is 2-1. So look, you're over doubling the odds here, 12.5. I think I might have found another angle, Miguel, perhaps.
Yeah. I think I'm almost certain this is what it was in 2018 as well, but it just has that sort of feel. So it's a very Swiss score.
Yeah, 2-1. So Serbia 1-2, Switzerland 2, 12.5 currently on Matchbook. And again, correct score markets, a lot of liquidity in those markets already, but before kickoff, definitely keep an eye on those correct scores. You'd be surprised at some of the prices you'd get on the exchange. We'll move on to podcast best bets, and the new offers double the odds on these podcast best bets. So no pressure once again, guys. And Adrian, I set you up lovely with the Brazil halftime full time earlier, and this is going to be your best bet.
Yeah, 4.4. Yeah, give me some of that. I'm quite confident here. I think that Brazil are warming into the tournament. I think they look the most complete team, I would suggest, so far. They attack with panache, but they've got that grit and organisation, haven't they? And they're fairly risk averse, Brazil. So I don't see them giving Cameroon much of a sniff here. A Cameroon side that have got to go out and win the game. And they're not very well organised defensively anyway. So I think from the word go, Brazil will create chances. And I don't expect this to be a slow starting Brazil performance. I think they'll get on the front foot, get their noses in front, and then cut loose from halftime onwards. So yeah, Brazil at 2.2 on the halftime full time. I'm all over that.
Miguel, Croatia, Belgium, both teams to score. This could be the last dance for a lot of these Belgian players, and you like both teams to score 1.86.
Yeah, I must say I kind of wavered over this a lot because of so many games. I do find this quite an unpredictable round that we've probably seen from the group games already as well. And like almost the pattern of the opening games have been blown apart, which maybe should have expected given the abrupt start to the tournaments. But with this, I think it's going to be another classic case. Once one goes in, it's a free-for-all because it's two teams. Absolutely, it's a direct playoff, especially given the nature of these teams, slow defenses. Lukaku coming back for Belgium. Yes. That Belgian defense, which is BTCS, I think it feels a banker.
It definitely screams.
In this tournament, I'm not sure what is.
Yeah, true. There is none, but I guess an early goal in that game, like you said, Miguel. I think the floodgates open. Mark, you had this best bet in very early on. I think early yesterday morning, just when I put the document up.
So put his flag in, didn't he? Because he lost out to me on the other one.
Germany both teams to score now, 1.75.
Yeah, not much to really say about this game, other than the fact that Costa Rica, across two games, have managed 4 shots, 1 shot from inside the penalty area, a total expected goals output of 0.15. They've yet to even win a corner in the competition so far. Yeah. So to back them to lose and not to score basically against Germany just feels right up my street at 175. I'm adamant it should be shorter. I think Germany have been one of the better teams in the competition, considering the standard of opposition they've had. Regardless of the results, I think their process has been largely pretty good, and I expect them to kind of come back from the death really and pick up the win that they need to qualify. So Germany to win and BTTS no 1.75.
Yeah, that stat of not having a corner just blows my mind, to be honest with you. So yeah, look, that's if you can't win a corner like in 2 games. Germany both teams to score now 1.75 for Mark. We're done. For those listening to the podcast, we have a pretty exciting podcast coming up. We're going to be recording 8:45 UK time. So if you're out on Friday night and you're getting up, you want to see a bet, it'll be in your podcast feeds, it'll be in YouTube and all the usual places. But we will have a little outright section. And even if the guys don't have selections, they can talk about some of their positions early in the tournament and what they would do back and late, all that good stuff. So that'll be the first 15 minutes. And then we will focus on the last 16 games, which takes us all the way up to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So and we will be back then recording next week to look ahead to the quarterfinals, then the semi-finals, and then the final. And before you know it, we'll be doing our big Christmas Premier League preview. I could see the smile on Adrian's face. The Arsenal are still top of the league, Adrian, believe it or not, and should still be top of the league come Christmas Day. Anyway, we will talk to everyone Saturday 8:45. If you do want to join us live, get involved in the YouTube comments. Until then, enjoy the last round of group stages. We'll talk to you Saturday. Bye bye.